Rather than tell a story that's entirely about myself, this time I thought I'd delve into the history of a specific game I've run in the past and to this day. A game which I've played on and off since I was a kid. Even though it can also be incredibly frustrating for the wrong reasons. .720 was an arcade game before anything else, launching in 1986 with an arcade cabinet that looked like it just had a couple of buttons and a crank in the middle of it. The idea of the game is to move the skater around a radical mid-80s city and complete 4 skateboarding events. You do this 4 times to complete the game, earning medals and money based on how well you perform in each event. Money which can be used to buy equipment upgrades to make the skater move faster and jump higher. The catch is that you need tickets to get into each event. These tickets are earned by hitting certain score thresholds, and coming up short causes the game to demand that you skate or die before a deadly swarm of bees chases you down. And because I know someone's thinking it, this game predates Skate or Die by 1 year, and Skate or Die in general was just a popular phrase at the time. It was popular enough to get ported to a number of different platforms, including the NES. As you might expect, the NES version of .720 is quite different from its arcade release, and often not for the better. The music and sound are a major step back, as you might expect, to the point that it can't play music and sound effects at the same time. The map has fewer objects to trick off of and NPCs to interact with. Some of the equipment you buy doesn't seem to do anything, the graphics will sometimes bug out for no apparent reason, collision detection will sometimes bug out for no apparent reason. In one event, sometimes the skater will lose friction and slide toward the water, for a reason, but a bad one. Sometimes the game will slow down, for no apparent reason, and the game will sometimes misread inputs, for no apparent reason. So, why do I still play this game? This was my family's first exposure to skateboarding, and eventually led to us getting one of those Veriflex boards, the ones with the massive kicktail and the word Ollie in big letters between the grip tape. You know, like this one. Being of an arcade origin, .720 has never really been seen as a speed game so much as a game people played as part of high score challenges, trying to earn as many points as possible before reaching the end, or earning as many medal points as possible by winning events. .720 for the NES? Not so much. In this version, when you complete the 4th set of events, the game loops endlessly. You'd think that means high score challenges are more viable, but if you hit 1 million points, the score rolls over to 0 and it becomes virtually impossible to proceed through the events. Therefore, the speedrun of this game is defined as the moment all 4 classes are completed, with time beginning when start is selected and ending when the final class 4 medal screen appears. That means your final score doesn't really matter outside of hitting 125,000 points, which yields the final event ticket needed, and earning medals from events doesn't factor into the run at all. Despite the game's oddities, such as sometimes colliding with nothing or skating over water instead of falling into it, the run itself currently doesn't involve any glitches, instead focusing on tight, consistent execution in each event, and taking the shortest path possible between events, performing jump spins along the way to earn the extra points necessary for each ticket. Each class gives a different amount of points per trick. Class 1 gives 100, Class 2 200, 3 gives 300, and 4 gives 400. Doing something else with that trick, like doing a spin over a water hazard or doing 2 spins instead of 1, gives an extra 100 points. As for the events, ramp, or half pipe, as anyone who knows skateboarding would call it, gives you a set amount of time to perform as many tricks and earn as many points as possible as the skater automatically moves from side to side. You can do a spin, a grind, and a hand plant at the top of each side, and a handstand in the middle of the pipe. Holding some of these tricks for longer earns more points, but holding them too long causes the skater to bail and fall to the middle of the ramp. The meter in the upper right indicates what medal you'll earn, as well as how many bonus points you'll get for this event. In the last two classes, the timer decreases by 10 seconds, making it harder to earn more bonus points. Slalom is exactly what it sounds like. Each gate is worth 300 points, and the medal meter in the top right being higher means more bonus points at the end of the event. Here, however, the meter gradually ticks down and increases with each gate hit. In the higher classes, the course gets longer and more gates get added. Jump is supposed to involve launching off a ramp and landing near a target on the ground in the middle of the ocean, I guess. This event is much more complex in the arcade version, as in the NES version, the jumps are less complicated and the targets don't actually do anything. Simply landing the jump anywhere will earn points. Earning more points makes the medal meter increase, but more important than that is the timer, as the bonus points in this event are however much time is left multiplied by 100. In the higher classes, more jumps get added to the course. Finally, there's downhill, where you get teleported onto a lake and try to navigate a series of platforms as quickly as possible. If done fast enough, the camera struggles to keep up with the skater. The medal meter determines the bonus points given after the event. As such, downhill usually yields the least amount of points, since it all but expects you to buy items to increase the skater's speed and acceleration, which is a thing in the arcade version speedrun, but doesn't happen at all in the NES version's run because the long detour is not worth it in the long run. More turns get added to this event for the higher classes. In 720's NES speedrun, the event order is a bit different from the arcade version. Here, it's preferable to start with ramp for each class. When tickets start to run low in the later classes, ramp is a surefire way to earn one ticket and be well on the way toward another. From there, it's preferable to move either clockwise or counterclockwise around the map to each event. The fastest way to do this involves jumping over a couple water hazards between them. The one between jump and downhill includes a ramp that sometimes just forgets it's a ramp and gives you no height, dropping you into the water and killing the run. Time losses are outright unforgiving, as every bail can cost between 3 and 4 seconds in the overworld. Messing up the timing of the ramp event can force you to do another back and forth motion, which wastes about 5 seconds. Falling into the water at the wrong spot can force you to have to back up and try again, or take another route entirely due to a bad respawn. Despite the game's fairly short speedrun, 1 or 2 mistakes can make a significant difference in the final time. In terms of official tracking of 720 runs, pretty much the only thing I have to go off of is the Speedrun.com leaderboard, which was created in 2016 by Rantron Bomb, a runner of many different games, but oddly enough, not a runner of 720. You see, the run used to create that board was one of my runs. I first tried speedrunning 720 around the start of 2013, figuring out a couple ways to amass points for tickets and finishing a loop of the game in about 13 minutes 40 seconds. That run, however, wasn't the one used to create the SRC leaderboard. It was one I performed the very next day, in which I finished the game in 13 minutes 34 seconds. The catch is, I wasn't an SRC member at the time, and I wouldn't be for another 2 years. In that gap, only one other runner posted a time, Green Mixtape, whose top time to this day is still 18 minutes 24 seconds. By the time I joined SRC, those two times were still the only ones, but even having the top spot, I knew the run could be a hell of a lot better. I went back to tighten up my movement, namely by bailing less and figuring out the timing for the ramp event. I wouldn't move the skater until either 67 or 56 seconds were on the clock, depending on the class, then did a specific pattern of moves so the skater would be as far to the left as possible as the clock hit 0. The end result was a 13-minute 23-second run. It was better, but there was still room for improvement. A few days later, in January of 2019, I tried something new. There's an NPC between slalom and jump, sometimes referred to as Pepsi Man, a liquid-like man running back and forth right in the path between those two events. In that version, being in the air while colliding with a person not only gives you points, but knocks the person over, meaning you don't have to avoid them. In the NES version, most of the NPCs can't be knocked over, but Pepsi Man can. Doing this does yield points, 250 in this case, but more importantly, it meant I could simply jump through Pepsi Man instead of swerving around him, saving a bit of time. This helped lower the best time again to 13 minutes 18 seconds. Another runner, Old School McFly, would join the leaderboard with a 14-minute 32-second time, and he would eventually pare that down all the way to a 13-minute 30-second run in early 2020. Before that, though, a breakthrough happened that resulted in more seconds getting shaved from the top time. To finish a loop of the game, 16 tickets are required for all the events. After enough practice, I was able to earn 125,000 points and earn the final ticket as I came out of the last jump event. In other words, I had more points than I needed to finish the run. While it's necessary to compete in every event in every class, it's not necessary to medal in them, or even move at all. For every event, however, it's faster to complete the event than to wait for the timer to run out. Except for one. If the medal meter ticks all the way down in slalom, the event ends, and it already starts off fairly low. I intentionally failed the first slalom event, as that was faster than doing the whole course. However, it only wound up saving 5 seconds, dropping the best time to 13 minutes 18 seconds. Then I realized it would be more efficient to do this with the later events. Class 4's slalom course takes 12 seconds to complete, and since the points for the gates don't increase with each class, and it only yields about 2,000 bonus points at the end, which is nothing in Class 4 terms, it was the most viable one to skip. By not hitting any gates, the prize readout never appears, which saves another 3 seconds. The latter also plays a role in the final 2 jump events, as simply landing the jumps and doing no tricks at all means not winning a medal and another 3-second time save. All of this would lead to January of 2020, when 720 on the NES broke the 13-minute barrier with a 12-minute 59-second run. Having hit that milestone, I decided to turn my attention to other runs, and not much happened in 720 for over a year. Then in March of 2021, retro runner Stuff Is Stuff would pop up on the leaderboard. He'd started a series called NES Adventure, where he played through each officially licensed NES game released in the US and timed how long it took him to finish them. While the time wasn't particularly fast, I still find it impressive that his run took only a little over 20 minutes, considering he'd never played 720 before. This seems insignificant to mention, but the way in which Stuff found the game and decided to run it is quite similar to how another runner got into the game. Enter Darth Tyrael. To my knowledge, he exclusively runs NES games. That includes NES ports of arcade titles such as Spy Hunter and Donkey Kong Jr. In April of 2021, he started a series of streams in which, not unlike Stuff is Stuff, he combed through the whole NES library in alphabetical order, looking for games that would be interesting to run or help develop ways to push the top times down further. Given the name of this game, it didn't take long for him to stumble upon 720. On April 20th, 2021, he submitted a run of 16 minutes 25 seconds, and the very next day, submitted a run of 14 minutes 48 seconds. 6 days later, his time was down to 14 minutes 3 seconds. You might wonder why I've gone on this long about Darth Tyrael, considering his best time is still over a minute slower than the top time, and it has to do with some discoveries he made that had completely flown under the radar for me. The first thing was a better jump spin method. In 720, if you try jumping and doing a full rotation with the D-pad, the game will sometimes misread it as 2 spins, usually causing you to crash. He realized that just by turning 90 degrees and going back to center, the game would still give credit for a full rotation, making jump spins easier to pull off without sacrificing points or a higher risk of wiping out. He also helped massively with making the ramp event more of a hotspot for point farming. Instead of waiting for a certain timer value, he started moving immediately. This makes it much tougher to time ending the event on the left side of the screen, as it requires holding some tricks for more or less time far more often. Holding tricks for too long can cause the skater to crash, but it ultimately means pulling off more tricks and thus earning more points. This led to another realization. Even though the metal bar seems to max out at a certain value, the bonus points continue to stack up beyond where it stops. Whereas before, 4,000 points was a good bonus value for ramp, 5,000 points became the standard, with 5,300 being the ideal. With this influx in points from earlier in the run, it was now possible to do the slalom skip twice, avoiding the 2 longest slalom courses and still being able to hit 125,000 points before the final event. For me, this culminated in a 12-minute 52-second run near the end of April 2021, now comfortably under the 13-minute mark. But there was still more work to be done. By this time, the point farming and efficiency of movement meant that even with the double slalom skip, there was still a surplus of points near the end of the game. To have the most ideal run, I would have to earn the final ticket as close to the first event of Class 4 as possible, since ramp alone easily yields enough points for a ticket and then some. That meant only one thing: triple slalom skip. Class 1 and Class 2 slalom are exactly the same. The courses are the same length, have the same amount of gates, take the same amount of time to complete, and consistently yield similar bonus point values. Therefore, it's a bit of a toss-up for which one to skip, except for one factor: rollover. During a stream where I tried scoring as many points as possible, I found the rollover values for everything in the game. The score rolls over to 0 when it hits 1 million, the money rolls over to 0 when it hits $1,000, and the tickets roll over to 0 if a 5th ticket is earned. Seeing as how the early ticket point thresholds are lower, I decided to skip Class 1 slalom. That led to this moment on May 8th, 2021. Oh god. Oh. Really? Really? This was about as good a run as one could hope for. It was a run in which I didn't wipe out at all or fall into the water a single time, and everything went exactly as planned. The record dropping by more than 10 seconds at this point was a significant leap, but at this point, there was just one question remaining. In the run, the most crucial moment is moving toward the ramp event on Class 4. There's a tendency to be behind on scoring at this point, and earn the ticket on the way to the event. However, in this run, I already had the event ticket when Class 4 started. Therefore, one last question remained. Was it possible to do what was done in the arcade version and skip every single slalom event to finish the game faster? The answer was yes. I found that it was possible to earn the Class 4 ticket on the way to the first event. From then on, I'd have no problem earning enough points for the others, but getting that first one would be problematic. Even in an ideal run, I'd still be about 3,500 points short at the start of Class 4, meaning I would have to earn the ticket along the way. You can fit in about 11, sometimes 12 jump spins on the way to the ramp event, so that means in an ideal run, I would still have to land 9 tricks on the way to ramp. To make sure I was as close as possible to that threshold, every point mattered. I incorporated even more jump spins between events, made sure I always hit Pepsi Man for the extra 250 points, and started doing tricks on the first 2 jump events for more points, since avoiding a medal on them isn't possible without wiping out. Several of my attempts would die at Class 4 because I didn't have a ticket for the event before trying to enter it. Then, on May 22nd, 2021, this run happened. I had enough points to enter Class 4's ramp event immediately, and turned in a near-perfect run as a result. I say near-perfect because there was a bail on one of the downhill events that cost me a bit of time. It's like I tend to say about this game's speedrun: 720 giveth, 720 taketh away. In the moment, I thought that would be the best I could do for some time, seeing as how a run in which everything is executed properly and the game doesn't drop an input at the worst time or forget how collision detection works is already an uncommon occurrence. However, only 1 hour after that run, this happened.
Let's go! And got the wall clip. It's a good day for 720. And I'm gonna celebrate by forcing this kid to stay alive and get killed by bees 2 more times.
And that was it. A run in which I skipped all 4 slalom events, didn't fall behind on points, and didn't bail or fall in the water a single time. This was the run, or to earn, depending on who you ask. I honestly don't know if I'll go back to run this game again after that. Maybe if someone finds some new tech, I will. For now though, after years of on and off play, many hours of runs, and some help from some other runners, I'm happy with where the run is now. But I'm always going to keep my cartridge and NES controller on standby, just in case a way to push the time even lower is discovered. Because in spite of its faults, and all the things that drive me crazy both in casual play and in the speed run of this game, I still love 720.